guys, it's good to have you with us today, my friends. My name is Henrik Palmgren. We have our friend Freeman back on the program today to talk about the latest strange developments of the space war, if we can call it that. There have been quite a few developments on this in this department, especially up here in the north. The Norway spiral, of course, and if you've been following our website, you know that we've managed to get some more clarity regarding the possible origins of the spiral. The big possibility that we're looking at right now is that IceCat, the European Incoherent Scatter Facility, is behind it. This is basically Scandinavia's HARP up in Tromsø, Norway, where the spiral was seen back in December 2009, around the 9th and 10th. There has also been strange patterns showing up on radar over Australia. That's January 22nd, as pointed out by Colin Andrews, who we hope to have with us soon on the program, by the way. We've also had large spherical objects that have been seen near the Sun by NASA satellites. On January the 26th, there was also a strange formation that showed up inside the green aurora over a small town of Andenes, not too far from Tromsø up in Norway. Again, we can ask the question if IceCat was behind this. Again, there's been all kinds of strange effects occurring lately. The earthquake, of course, in Haiti as well. People are talking about HARP. Speculation about the origins of the earthquake are many and varied. So basically what we're asking is, what is it all about? Where do we go here? Well, we have Freeman with us here today to discuss these things and much more, and tie things in like CERN and NASA's CARE program, or the Black Brant number 12. We're going to talk more about this later on. FREEMANTV.com is the website. Go there for more information about Freeman's work, research, his own radio show archives, DVD, and much more. So with that, welcome back, Freeman. Good to talk to you again. It's about time. So much has been happening since we last spoke. How are you, Freeman?
It's true, Henrik, and it's great to be here. It's amazing the things that you and I have been going through. You know, you were basically my first radio show on an international scale. So I love being here. I love talking with you, Henrik. You are my favorite.
Thank you,
host.
Freeman. We love to have you, and it's always exciting to have you on, and you bring so many different things together, just like you have now here again, then in your latest post that is up on your website, FREEMANTV.com. And basically, give us a little bit of an outline here then. I know that you wanted to begin to talk about Flash Gordon, a kind of an off-angle starter for us here today. Tell us about Flash Gordon, Freeman.
Absolutely. Well, the concept is, and this is something that I've been working on, when you dig into Hermetic arts, when you start to dig into the magical belief system, they believe and expound that the idea that the universe is mental. And this would fit the concepts that I'm looking at so much with mind control, with predictive programming, and all of the sorts of things that we see engineering our reality. And it seems as if, you know, we are the computer that creates reality, and then they are the input that puts in the programming. And so when we start to see the outline of what's going on today with Hugo Chavez accusing the U.S. of causing earthquakes, this sounds ludicrous, or at least would have maybe a decade ago. But 1936, on the big screens in America, we had Flash Gordon. We had Ming the Ruthless coming through as Galactic Emperor, using weather modification, throwing fireballs, hurricanes, tornadoes at Earth for his own pleasure. You know, Ming wasn't even trying to occupy Earth. He just wanted to have some fun. And then what happens is we've got Flash and Dale Arden coming to the rescue. Now, this is your Princess Warrior programming, something that we've been discussing quite a bit on my show, and also are about to release a magazine coupled with the Sorcerers of Atlantis on this concept of the Princess Warrior programming. But so you see, as far back as 1936, we were already introducing the concept into the minds of mankind about weather modification from extraterrestrial sources coming down to just manipulate planet Earth, and then using a Princess Warrior programming to save planet Earth.
Incredible. So back in the 30s, basically, and I mean, they had Tesla stuff going on then as well. I remember some old Superman comics even. They had the scientists who developed the death ray and stuff like that. So it's been in science fiction. But again, to emphasize and to bring further clarification to your point, I guess what you're saying as well is that we have these sci-fi weapons pretty much coming online during these times that we're living in right now, and we see these kind of weird effects basically happening all around us, Freeman.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where it really starts to get confusing. Now, I made a HAARP video back in 2006, and already that HAARP video was basically dated. I mean, the information was 1999. But I was trying to outline and show people what this was and what its capabilities were. And at that time, Milosevic had accused the U.S. of using HAARP to cause earthquakes and floods in the Middle East. Now, when I showed this to university students at Kansas University, it was in the front page of the USA Today. And they said, oh, well, he'll just say that. You know, and no one was ready for this type of concept. Now we're to a point where Jesse Ventura is promoting HAARP over True TV, and everybody now thinks that it shoots big light beams up out of it or something, you know, because of the graphics they used. And now, of course, everyone's going HAARP, 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 causing earthquakes in Haiti. And, you know, it was the Russian military, it was Hugo Chavez. When we have really no proof, and everyone is ignorant of the other ionospheric heaters, or VLF, ULF antenna arrays around the globe. So they're focused on this one, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, when they could look to, as you mentioned, ISCAT, or they could look to SURA, or now we're seeing these effects over Australia. And that is, of course, the Boeing System Support and Operations set up VLF array there in Northwest Australia.
So there's tons of these facilities around, and of course one of the speculation here as well is if they can work in unison, if they can work together to create these kind of things. I don't know if that's necessary. It could just be one and the single device or facility that is operating. But when it comes to, I mean, if we go back then and basically look at December 2009 over Norway, the spiral and things like that, from my point of view right now, the ASCAT seems very plausible and likely because the whole Russian failed missile thing, I'm ready to throw that out the door. How about you, Freeman?
Well, I still have my questions, and I think that both answers are correct, actually. Now, first of all, we've got to, you know, ask the question about the companionship between Norway, their ISCAT, and the Russian military. And then couple this with the whole concept of it happening as soon as Obama shows up for his Nobel Peace Prize, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And, of course, Obama, starting right from day one before he was elected, you know, I will not weaponize space. I will not weaponize space. That was part of his platform of getting elected. Most people just skipped over that one, you know, because who thinks about weaponization of space except for, like, Nazis? You know? And so we have that question, first of all. Okay, so Obama wrote the secret letter to Medvedev way back at the beginning of his presidential status. And this was, of course, not secret. It was broadcast all over the news, and it was about, you know, limiting the nuclear missiles. Then we have the whole sensation and story of the Department of Defense taking over NASA or combining with NASA. So this sounds like a militarization of space, and I definitely want to talk to you about NASA and what's going to happen. Yeah. Because there's big changes coming, very big changes coming, and I've been tracking that for some time. So are they working together, or do we have a Russia-Norway alliance as they're trying to break open portals into the other dimension, or what is going on? And is this a Switzerland-Russian-Norway alliance? Because it was CERN, you know, being at world record levels the night before, was it involved in this Norway spiral? Okay, but the one thing that people are missing, and this is this Norway spiral. Okay, but the one thing that people are missing, and this is why I don't rule out the Russian rocket right away, and that is the cloud of care. Now, most people miss the cloud of care, and even the news did not know what the cloud of care was. Now, on September 19th last year, from the Mars facility, now Mars is the god of war, our new space program is going to be called Ares, which is Mars, which is the god of war. So, you know, even symbolically, we are going to a wartime space program. And Mars is the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport there in Virginia. It's also known as the Wallops Flight Facility. And usually what is launching out of here is, well, actually there's only been a few launches from there, but they launch Minotaurs, which launch technical TAC satellites. TAC-SATs and CubeSats get launched from Minotaurs out of there. But it came across my notes from Rosalind Peterson over at California Skywatch that there was going to be this other launch called the Cloud of Care. So I began tracking it and following it. And you can see the news reports as I follow it, as it got delayed in its launch and things. So I have that all backed up under Space War News on my site. The CARE program was called the Charged Aerosol Release Experiment. And what it was a Black Brant rocket launching up out of Virginia. And what it did was explode an aluminum oxide cloud into the upper atmosphere at about 180 miles. Now, this is right about the level of the magnetosphere. Mm-hmm. And they launched this, and their reasoning for launching and releasing an aluminum oxide cloud up into the upper atmosphere was to determine the amount of incoming particles from rocket launches. Which kind of seems like a catch-22. Let's emit a bunch of rocket particles to see how many rocket particles are coming down, right? But the curious thing is that no one knew about this launch except for those that were tracking chemtrails, tracking these type of anomalies, and watching as these things erupt. Now, if we could play the news clip that occurred that day from Virginia to show you that the effects were nearly identical to the Norway spiral minus the spiral.
Let's cue up the clip and have a listen to that.
You know, we should have replaced the news music with the X-Files theme.
Yes, that would have been very apropos.
Because viewers from all over our region called into 69 News tonight reporting a strange sight in the sky.
A lot of calls from Allentown and Bethlehem all the way to Berks County. Everyone calling in describing the same thing. So WFMZ's Stephanie Esposito joins us live now in Bethlehem Township with more on the details of that story. Stephanie.
Hi, John and Karen. Well, at first we thought it was a joke, but so many people described it the same way. Many of them believed that what they saw tonight in the skies was a UFO.
We were just walking, talking, that sort of thing, and I kind of looked up in the sky. There was a big white, an orb, almost like a tiny planet, and all of a sudden this big ray came out of it, it was all white.
And all of a sudden there was a beam that came down from it. It was white and bluish, and then all of a sudden it just looked like the sky sucked it up and the sky just closed.
Reports from Bethlehem to Berks County.
All I keep thinking of the movie E.T.
Something unusual took place in the sky tonight.
I would never have had time to take a picture of it. It was just so...
It disappeared.
It disappeared. The sky ate it.
So far, 69 News has not been able to obtain a picture, but we did get multiple witness reports. We've contacted the Lehigh Valley Airport and local communication centers. Everyone said nothing was happening. Now, a lot of times people will hear things like this and they'll say, oh, it was a weather balloon or it was a shooting star. Is there any other explanation?
No, that was not a shooting star and it was not a weather balloon.
One thing is for sure, tonight people are asking themselves, do I believe?
I don't know if I believe in that kind of thing.
Now, some people have pointed out that it's a strange coincidence. Today's date is actually 9/19/09, if you want to put any weight on that. But regardless of what people believe, a lot of people are asking themselves tonight, what was that up there? And they really are just saying everyone agrees they've never seen anything like it before.
Okay, there we go. So what we can say is that, just as you pointed out, Freeman, is that the people who watched this from the ground, and even some of the news reporters there, went to the UFO story right away. This is a UFO because, just as you pointed out, no one seemed to know what was going on there and have any data about this test of care, right, Freeman?
Yes, exactly. That is the critical issue here too. Is that all right? Now I stood my guns. People kept asking me, "What's the next 9/11? What's the next 9/11?" Of course, this was after my 10/13 prediction, and I'm saying it's asteroids, and people are going, "Well, that doesn't quite fit my worldview. Asteroids, what's going on?" Well, but after UFO or after asteroids, the prediction was that it was going to be alien invasion. And so this was Werner von Braun telling us we're going to have the Red Scare, we're going to have terrorists, then we'll have asteroids, then we'll have aliens. So as I started to track this and we started to watch this same scenario going on, back in December of 1999, a large meteor came in over the HARP facility, directly over the facility, exploded in the atmosphere, causing a sonic boom and an earthquake 3 hours later in Anchorage, Alaska, December of 99. So I began to track these things. Sorry, I got lost on the news story. Let's get back to that when we can catch up with the incoming asteroids. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when we're looking at this news story and they're interviewing the people, we start to see that they're describing very much a similar event as the Norway spiral. Many people, when they're looking at the Norway spiral, are asking, what was that black hole that opened up in the sky? Yes. And that this is the reason that they say this is not a rocket. Now, if we go to Richard Hoagland, enterprisemission.com, we see him proving that it was a rocket launch because he finds the rocket trail. But at the same time, he's still not convinced that it was a rocket or a missed rocket launch. So everybody's very confused on this, and I think that because they missed the cloud of care, they don't see the effect beforehand. Mm. Now, what has happened when we're launching an aluminum, and another favorite part of my news article, that news story, is when they go, and this happened on 9/19/09. Some may find significance in this, as if, as if that was news, and as if they knew anything about doing numerology or specific dates. They're obviously not watching Freeman because they didn't know about the cloud of care. So what do they know about 1909, right? I just found that very humorous. But what we find them is describing the very same effects, the bright flash in the sky, opening vortex in the night sky, and a blue beam coming out of this. Now, Dr. Dimfel, who was a lead scientist looking into the Norway spiral, clearly stated that what we were looking at was aluminum, an aluminum oxide cloud. And what was coming down, the reason it was a blue spiral was that aluminum oxide's chemical formula is sapphires. Mm-hmm. And so we're seeing sapphires reflecting in the sunlight. And that would explain the blue. Yeah. And so what I'm saying is that we have a coupled energy field going on. So we have the rocket launch, which I don't know where it came from, whether it was the Russians did admit to the launch, but then did not connect it to the Norway spiral. Right. So if we're looking at an aluminum oxide cloud being launched up in the atmosphere and then twisted with the ice cap, because we know that HARP does bullseyes in the sky. You can look at graphs showing the type of spiral pattern that these ultra-low radio frequency waves transmit. But what's going on is the bigger question that none of us seem to be able to answer because we just don't know enough at this time. And what frightens me is that when we're looking at these events and everyone like Hugo Chavez, the Russian military, screaming HARP, Haiti, without the knowledge of the other ionospheric heaters. And then same with the Norway spiral, everyone's trying to bring UFO disclosure into this. This was extraterrestrial in some sort, without having the knowledge of the charged aerosol release experiment. Yeah. So I've come to you, first of all, just to get this out to the people that there was the cloud of care. You can go look at the video on my site, and you can see that it was identical minus the spiral. Right, right. And there were similar things in China or was it Japan? I can't remember now. Somewhere in Asia, they had a similar spiral shape happening as well. This was before the Norway spiral, I think. And but I mean, basically, the thing we can point out here as well is that the IceCat facility is, I think, and but I mean, basically, the thing we can point out here as well is that the IceCat facility is they have a heating
array or a special heating facility in Tromsø as well, which is designed to create plasma turbulence, right? So, and there's even plasma turbulence simulating software and stuff like that out there, which seems to create this kind of spiral movement, if you will, as well. So it could be a combination, as you say, of these things. They're sending up some kind of, how should we put it, like a carrier, or that so that you can visually see the representation of what the heating facility actually does to the atmosphere, or something like that. I'm not really sure yet, but again, that idea that it's designed to create plasma turbulence, to me, suggests that it had the possibility of creating like a wave pattern in the atmosphere. What do you think, Freeman?
Absolutely. And then what we start to see are all these strange cloud effects. There was just a recent one, I think, over... you know what, I don't know where that recent one was right off. I just was looking at this today, but what I started tracking also were these type of strange cloud effects that were occurring at the same time. So right after the cloud of care in October 9th, we get the strange ring cloud over Russia.
Yeah.
And these type of anomalies have been, on the rise, reported more and more.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have people manipulating the ionosphere and the magnetosphere as they are, without giving us any data as to why and what they're doing, people are going to natural reactions and saying, well, this is just, new meteorological strangeness. But not realizing that, because you went to climate Copenhagen. We're pushing this whole global warming green movement. Meanwhile, we're launching ionospheric heaters and large mirrors up in space to radiate sunlight back to the Earth.
Yeah.
Well, what?
Yeah.
So we can't trust anything at this point.
Absolutely. There's so many different variables, and especially when they begin to mess around with these things, and more power are always, or rather the facilities are being built out all the time as well, and they can harness more and more energy all the time. Just on a side note as well, Freeman, we put up an article today on the site. The headline was U.S. General urges World War on Space Debris. World powers must find ways to reduce the amount of debris in orbit as the collision risk is posed to spacecraft is increasing, the head of the U.S. Strategic Command said on Wednesday. This is Air Force General Kevin Shilton, a former astronaut. Just a side note, but that's interesting that they're gearing up for war in space, as it were, for different reasons and and different kinds of war in space as well, Freeman.
Right, and this is critical to the issue. This is where we need to look, because what is going on now is a whole revamping of the space systems all around the globe, and we are moving into all of these international space nations. So pretty much every G20 nation has a launch facility. You remember India launching, I think it was somewhere around 10 sounding rockets for the eclipse. Mm-hmm. Then we have Astana, or Kazakhstan, where Russia launched the clown into space, where they launched the Cirque du Soleil guy. But that's where, Kazakhstan is where they launch from.
And that city, by the way, is major. They're building their pyramid structures lit up in different colors. That could be symbolically seen as a major Illuminati capital, if you will, Astana in Kazakhstan.
Oh, you better believe it. Yeah, that Pyramid of Peace, they'll be hosting the Fourth Congress of World Leaders trying to bring about the unified religion.
Yes.
Also, Astana was where they decided to come up with the one world currency, Akmetal. And the name Astana actually means threshold, which brings me back to the double columns. Whenever I see the word threshold, I think of the twin columns in Freemasonry and the passage through into the temple, and this is the Empress. Which is also the letter G, and it gets into a lot of connections in the symbolism.
Yes.
But absolutely, Kazakhstan is set up as some sort of geomantic or earth magic system device. It's in perfect geometric patterns. We have that Pyramid of Peace, the palace. The presidential palace looks like it should have lightning bolts coming between those twin columns. And, of course, the strange total recall hand up in that giant ball. You know, this is strange madness, and this is what our 21st century capitals are looking like. We've got, of course, also Dubai, and you better remember that Atlantis is in Dubai,
yeah.
And then that Tree of Life, and all. You know, I know you covered that well.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much. I just want to ask you as well, Freeman, on a side note here, if you did hear about the whole Benjamin Krem Maitreya Steps Forward annunciation as well on their own website, actually. They will
Share International.
Yes. Did you hear about this?
I did, and it's very curious, because I personally had only just come across this incoming dwarf star, which was G1.9 plus 0.03, but you can just find it by G1.9. It's also linked under Space War News and all the images. Now, of course, what Benjamin Krem was saying with this arrival of Maitreya, and they said that he had appeared on a national or American TV show, which I haven't found yet. I'd like to see.
Me neither, yeah.
Now, we also know that Obama was in Kenya when the Maitreya made his appearance, and very curious connections with this whole character. Okay, yes. But what he was saying was the blue star. This other star would be appearing at the appearance of Maitreya. Also, we have the Hopi Blue Star prophecies, which Obama quoted from, which I actually read on your radio program 2 times back when I was on. Mm-hmm. So we've got Obama quoting Hopi end-of-the-world prophecies. We've got the Maitreya showing up stating that there would be a blue star or a new star in the sky that would come with his appearance. And now we have this G1.9. Now, when you start looking at this thing, it's crazy. G1.9 could not be spotted because either it's a supernova or a brown dwarf star. We've got battling scientists on this issue right now. NASA, JPL, Jet Propulsion's laboratory, was saying that this was a supernova. And when you have a look at this supernova, you'll see very clearly that it looks just like the Firefox logo. Very curious there. And of course, my mathematics tell me that Fox equals 666. You know, F's. And, that's right. So, you know, Firefox, Fire 666, and of course CERN 666. And we can get deeper and deeper into that type of symbolism and just who is controlling the technological advancements of planet Earth. But when we start to get to G1.9, we'll see that another team, the Star Viewer team, is announcing that it was a brown dwarf and that it's actually hurtling towards planet Earth. And this might be that wormwood and the planet X that people have been looking for. It was not visible to us by the naked eye, and as you start to look into the studies of when the last reports of this incoming star way back in our ancient past, they say that, you know, they had a day that they could see it. It was only when it became visible within the sun's radiation that this incoming Nibiru, Death Star, whatever you want to call it, was visible.
Yeah.
Until then, it's completely invisible. Well, that turns out to be the same case with G1.9, is that it is completely invisible to the naked eye. It was only when they launched the IRAS, or the infrared satellite up into space. Now, it also has to be in space. It can't be viewed from infrared on Earth or even other well, they just launched the WISE, the wide-angle infrared viewer satellite. And so 1980, we got our first glimpse of G1.9. And this was when NASA announced that it was a supernova. Then we start seeing it, them having to backtrack on their information, saying, well, we think it's actually younger than we thought it was because it's getting bigger. And other scientists, like the Star Viewer group, are saying, well, it's getting bigger because it's coming towards us, and that this is actually a binary sun in our solar system that we are orbiting around. But it fits into these prophecies very well, and now we can witness it, now we can see it because we have the WISE out there. We have the IRAS, but of course that's ancient technology by today's standards. And at the same time, we have U.S. scientists calling for creation of an international asteroid defense agency.
Yeah.
Okay, I find this curious because I watch a lot of Hollywood to get the backstory on what they're trying to put out to us. Now, Hollywood is straightforward predictive programming, and they release a lot of data that, you know, you can actually use in your straightforward understanding of the universe and the world around us. and I just watched 2012 Supernova, which basically has the Americas and Russian and China alliance coming together to build a nuclear platform out in space to deter this. The Americas and Russian and China alliance coming together to build a nuclear platform out in space to deter this incoming blast coming from a supernova. And this was the end of the world, of course. Now we're looking at it in reality. You know, it's really coming, and we've got all these nations getting their ionospheric heater, their radio frequency transmitters ready and up and running. We're watching test runs after test runs while they seem to be preparing for an end-of-the-world script.
And the new Messiah is stepping forward, and everyone will follow him now as well. You know, it's like, what is going on here? You know, many people, of course, kind of speculated that they might put Obama in this role, which on some level might be true that they're pushing that, but probably they're going to try to do it under another figure. But just as you pointed out, Freeman, it would be really interesting to see this video that they talk about on their website, and see if who this character is. We'll see what happens there.
Absolutely, and yeah, and some people are even saying Obama is Maitreya.
Well, exactly. Yeah. What do you think? Do you think he's going to be?
Well, we definitely discussed Obama cloning in the coming space war on your show. You know that I've been standing strong on this whole concept that Obama is the clone of Akhenaten, and that we have Queen T as his mother, as Michelle Obama, the daughters as the daughters of Akhenaten. They are all identical. And this, of course, was the key ingredient that made me keep my eye on Apophis, because Akhenaten's religion created the concept of a serpent deity of destruction known as Apophis. Mm-hmm. So I've stood my ground on this one, taking somewhat of a beating, but also people just being completely astounded by this, because now we have, of course, Russia announcing that they need to save the world from Apophis. We have a NASA-China alliance saving us from Apophis. We have many scientists coming together. And now they're calling for this creation of an international asteroid defense agency. Mm. This is where it's coming to a head, you see, because we're ending the Columbia endeavor for the discovery of Atlantis. The space shuttles end this year. Russia says that they might be able to take over from Kazakhstan and do the launches necessary till NASA's back on its feet. Mm. In Congress, they're fighting over the keeping of the Constellation Ares program, as opposed to going to more privatized space programs such as SpaceX. Now, all of us have been funding Elon Musk's SpaceX for some time, because he is also the creator of PayPal.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. And so SpaceX now is getting ready. It'll be actually next month in February. They'll be doing their first test launchings of the Dragon spacecraft.
Oh, my God. Okay, well, there we go.
We start to look at the symbolism now. The Dragon spacecraft is launched by the Falcon launch vehicle, which of course goes back to Horus, or Ra, who always did the battle with Apophis, right? Mm-hmm. At every night, the Ra would battle Apophis and then be able to come back out. So we have the Falcon spacecraft, which is Ra, which is Horus, and it is all launched by the Merlin engine. Oh. So, SpaceX is not deviating from their symbolism at all.
Oh, there you go.
So we have this battle. We have this battle right now as the privatized pioneers of entrepreneurism, which, if you believe any of that, are trying to get their space vehicle up, while the Ares of NASA is having so many issues. It's having vibrations on the launch pad that they can't get the Ares rocket to launch properly.
Yeah.
And it's curious because Ares takes 2 rockets. There will be the Ares, I believe it's the Ares 1, that would launch humans, and then the Ares 5, which was slightly larger, quite a bit larger than the Ares 1, to launch the equipment. But I do believe that SpaceX is going to win out in this situation, and that it's because what we're looking at now, and this is where my earlier research becomes so important, is the signs of allegiance of the Illuminati that I have been tracking through corporate logos.
Yes.
And when you start to take that into effect, you realize that Nazism is not a nation, it's a mindset. when you realize that the occult nature of Freemasonry is not a nation, it's a mindset. Freemasonry rules in most of the major nations. It is the world's largest fraternity. And within Freemasonry, now you'll find that all of our NASA astronauts were Freemasons. You'll find that most of our presidents in America were Freemasons. And you'll find that almost every major corporation founded was a Freemason. You know, RCA, McDonald's, you pick it, Walmart, Target. You know, you can go and track that these were all founded by Freemasons. Then you look at their corporate logos and you see that they all interrelate and they are signs of allegiance to one another. So the point being that we are moving into a corporatocracy. Corporatocracy, however you would put that.
Yeah.
Some have been calling it communitarianism.
Yes.
Basically, it's fascism. And what the problem is that we're still stuck in this mental state where we believe in nations dealing with nations. And that simply isn't the case, and hasn't been, or if ever has been. When we look back into the world wars, we see Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt sitting all together. Of course, all 33rd degree Freemasons. So this is not a national issue, and it's the same with this new spacefaring race that we're watching rise.
Freeman, I just got to point this out because
Sure.
I remember now when you brought up the Dragon and that whole the privatization of the space industry. We have, of course, Sir Richard Branson on the other end of this as well with his Virgin Galactic fleet. And interesting enough, they are called, his two rockets that they've been working on are called the White Knight. So you have the Knight battling the Dragon, if you will, then in one way. And I mean, White Knight 2 is apparently named after VMS Eve. And the VMS in this case, the prefix stands for Virgin Mothership. How do you like that?
Yes, yes. And let's not leave old Arnold Schwarzenegger out of this picture either. He's always been one that's been strongly behind space exploration and cloning, if we all remember him from The Sixth Day. Arnold Schwarzenegger came out and was saying, yes, spacecraft 2, or what do they call that, the Virgin spacecraft.
The White Knight?
Right. Well, they were calling it... Sorry, I was trying to look it up, but I have so much space for news. They were calling it Spaceship 2, and but so Arnold Schwarzenegger was the strong proponent for this whole Spaceship 2. He went out, and what we're talking about is Virgin Galactic.
Yes.
And so he's been pushing this heavily, just as he was pushing stem cell research back in 2005. So now let's just add to this that Obama just brought forth an executive order bringing 10 council regional governors together under his command, half of which will be selected by Obama himself. And they have this 10 regional governors now coming together to unify the United States. Yeah, Spaceship 2 is what he was calling it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so... Now, back in 1972, I think it was, Henry Kissinger getting together with Richard Nixon and stating that we needed to break the United States up into 10 regions that would then be under the command of the United Nations. And this was one of the major conspiracy theories back when I began being a conspiracy theorist, was that there were going to be these 10 regions in America run by these 10 regional governors, and that we would have 2 new capitals, one being in Denver and one being in Atlanta. And now Obama has just passed or pushed the executive order creating this very 10 regional governorship.
Do you want to
and I have a feeling.
Do you want to tie in the biblical prophecies in that too then, maybe?
Oh, you're talking about the crowns.
The 10, yeah, exactly, the 10 horns or whatever you want to call that, 10 leaders or 10 crowns or, yeah.
Yeah, I steer away from that a little bit because, you know, it's too hard for me to say what the Bible's really talking about. But yeah, absolutely, that was part of the whole thing. That was part of the whole conspiracy theory back when I began. And of course, you often come to conspiracy theory through the Christian Patriot movement.
Yes.
And they were the first ones talking about all of this, and absolutely, they were the ones that clued me into the understanding of these 10 regions, and also the idea about the creation of a homeland security, which is what led me to predict 9/11. So, that was the very reason I was tracking that date, because the Homeland Security bill came up every October 1st throughout the whole Clinton era. Mm-hmm. But it was when they forced the W into office, as I also predicted, that I knew that would be the year. And so I ran around like Chicken Little saying, hey, there's going to be a major terrorist attack on 9/11. Don't freak out. It's all for you. Ran around like Chicken Little saying, hey, there's going to be a major terrorist attack on 9/11. Don't freak out. It's all for your reaction. Mm-hmm. And so now these things are coming to fruition. So another point of this is that, one, Obama has not deviated from the plan one bit. This is the CFR plan from day one, and if you listen to Bill Cooper, you'll realize the extraterrestrial roots to the Council on Foreign Relations. And two, that I do feel like Governor Schwarzenegger will be one of those 10 regional governors, which to me would be over the top, but everything has been over the top, so I'm really expecting to see him there.
All right.
He is a major proponent for Virgin Galactic, for pushing suborbital Virgin, which I believe will be launching out of the Kodiak launch pad in Alaska. Now, not many people know we have the most highly sophisticated launch facility in Alaska, which is in Kodiak, Alaska. Have a look at that. And then also, Arnold Schwarzenegger back in 2005 was a heavy proponent for stem cell research, and which, of course, opens the door to human cloning.
Yes.
And Bush countered, George W. Bush countered this statement by Arnold Schwarzenegger by bringing out a bunch of stem cell babies that they had saved the cells and they were going to be destroyed, and instead they went ahead, well, not, they were sperm cells and eggs that they decided to go ahead and create instead of destroy. And George W. Bush had them all up on stage saying, these children are not spare parts. There are moral lines I cannot cross. I cannot allow for this stem cell research to pass. And then, of course, Obama comes in and says, yeah, forget all that. I'm going to loosen all these restrictions and let's start cloning, y'all. And next thing we know, next thing we know, we're cloning rhesus monkeys. And as soon as they were done with these 100 rhesus monkeys, and this was just recently done, they said, okay, we're ready for human. Now, these are going to be the biggest debates that we're going to deal with in our current future, and that is cloning and space war. And that's why
we're looking at Blade Runner scenarios almost here, Freeman.
Yeah, we could be looking at that. Be looking at this new movie Moon. I don't know if you've seen that yet. You can, of course, watch it free on the internet.
That's right. Very, very interesting in terms of cloning. I don't want to give it too much away, maybe for those who want to see it, but that's a very good hint. Actually, you're absolutely right, and it could be for the purpose of sending people, human beings, out into space for longer trips. It could be, we could be potentially even talking about genetically engineering the human race to be better fit, as it were, for longer flight travels, either for the purposes of putting them in kind of a gestation period or so they can be asleep for a long time, but it can also be actually that they will have physical different traits in regards to the bone structure and things like that, and the musculature, so they don't become weak and fall apart as we do right away. What's your take there? Where do you think they will take this? How far will they go with this kind of research?
Well, you brought me straight to the Vatican there, Henrik. Now let's just look into this as where we're going right now. Now, UFO disclosure, we're seeing this on CNN. We're seeing it as main stories of topic. UFO disclosure, National Press Club, all of this type. Five Symington coming forward saying, sorry, I had to lie to you before, but really, yeah, that was a alien craft. I don't buy it. This is the program, right? But now the Pope and the Vatican, they come out, and mostly Reverend Funes, who is a Jesuit priest, is the lead astronomer there at the Vatican, who came out and said, aliens are space brothers and don't suffer original sin because they weren't born of Eve. But on top of that, I guess the reason I meant to bring this up was the Pope had said designer babies were the next major threat to humanity. And so, you know, even from the Pope, we are getting this story. And we're looking at where we're going. It's, you know, designer babies, that's Gattaca again. And we're worried about who's going to move forward and who's not.
Yeah.
Who's going to get these engineered effects and who's not. When you look at my old film, well, it's old now, I guess, Return of the Nephilim, you'll see where we were covering this concept of space travel using cloning and how that could be the only possible means of traveling light years.
Mm.
But of course, then this includes SIM cores, which is what they were called in the Sixth Day, or mind-transferring technology. Now, you and I, we discussed this just for a moment. I actually was listening to one of our last show together, and you had brought up Henry Markram's Blue Brain project.
Yeah, that's right, Blue Brain.
And it actually came across my radar, forgetting completely that you had brought it up. You know, it's amazing how much we can learn by going back and re-listening to shows. You know. Anyway, so I began tracking the Blue Brain project and the idea of SIM cores or mind-transferring technology and how this would interrelate. Now, this goes right to Avatar, because that's what we're looking at. Now, when we realized that Avatar, they were saying, okay, the hero of the show was not supposed to be the hero. His twin brother had died. But they had to select the twin brother because his DNA matched the clone that they had created to transfer his soul into.
Yes.
That makes me wonder a lot about the cloning of Obama, I must say. Because, you know, do we need this particular genetic line to bring back this entity? Because, you know, I've covered a lot of times how, and you can get this out of even the golden tablets or the emerald tablets of Thoth, of specific genetic bloodlines incarnating particular entities through rites and rituals.
Yes.
And then we're always got to question why our leaders are going through these strange rites and rituals. Most people don't even know that this is occurring.
Yeah.
But when we start to look into this mind-transferring technology, and you had guided me to Blue Brain, although I found it again later on my own, I started to realize where we're at with this. Now, Benjamin Funes, the reverend that I was speaking of that was working for the CERN, or with the Vatican Astronomy, is also now coupled with CERN. And this happened the day after the Norway spiral. They announced that Gabriel Gianti would be joining with CERN to find this God particle, or the astro particle as they called it. I don't know whether they're referring to the Higgs boson or not. They call it the astro particle. This might be something completely different, another spiritual level.
I think it is the Higgs boson particle, but yeah, carry on.
So we have this connection on all of these levels going straight to the Vatican.
Do you think they're funding the projects? Do you think that they have another interest when it comes to this kind of research, Freeman?
I do. Well, if you look into my research, go back to Sorcerers of Atlantis, and we start looking into these city-states, and there's a great film called The Empire of the City, which is a great documentary on the idea of the city-states and the power that they hold with the Vatican, London, and Washington, D.C. Now, the curious note is that when we are starting to look into our extraterrestrial outlines of the universe, what is now known as exopolitics, you find that the two main races involved are the Syrians and the Alpha Draconans. And of course, these just happen to be the main symbols that we see in these city-states. So the Vatican, of course, wears the Dagon hat, and that goes back to the fish god of Dagon. And we see an obelisk, a dome, set up within a geometric pattern that looks like a keyhole. And this obelisk dome and a pentagram are actually the symbols of the star Sirius in Egyptian hieroglyphs. So we're seeing also in every nation, in each one of these city-states, we see this obelisk dome symbolism. We find that we've got the fishman symbolism with the Pope, and that goes back to the Syrians. We have the dragon in connection with the city of London, and this goes to the Alpha Draconans. When you start to look into what these two extraterrestrial sources are meant to be doing, of course, the Syrians are into the high-tech warfare, high-tech space programs and all of this, using their knowledge to stay neutral. And when we see what the Alpha Draconans are up to, it is describing exactly what the Crown is up to. And then we find that they put up these obelisks around each one. And we find Cleopatra's Needle placed on the Thames there in London in 1877. Now, this is the same year that the District of Columbia was crafted as it is as a separate there in London in 1877. Now, this is the same year that the District of Columbia was crafted as it is as a separate body, a separate nation of its own, a city-state. 1877 also is the year that Mars's moons arrived. They were not spotted by any astronomers, not spotted by anyone up until this 1877, and then everyone started seeing them.
So it's almost like someone put them into place. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. And of course, 6 probes going up to Phobos, all were lost. The last one by the Russians, known as Phobos 2, happened to manage to take a photograph of a 14-mile-long craft.
Yes.
A saucer-shaped craft, which then they publicly announced, or at least the scientist involved, the lady, I can't think of her name right now, but it's on the site, publicly announced this and leaked out the information to everyone so that we could know this. Phobos is going to become a major issue here really soon. We're going to see the Russia-China alliance launching for Phobos probably this year. It was supposed to be last year, but it won't happen. We've got Buzz Aldrin announcing that there's a giant monolith up on Phobos.
Yeah, put there by God. It was put there by God. You know, fuck is that? Strange. Very, very strange.
Goes right to Stanley Kubrick, right? In 2010, the year we make contact. I believe that Phobos is going to be a major focus point in this whole disclosure movement. That they're going to attempt to announce that humans have traveled to other planets, and I think they'll use Phobos as their example. That they'll find ancient architecture on Phobos.
So back up there, Freeman. Are you saying that they're going to discover it and say that we did it in the past, or what do you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they're going to rewrite history at this point. Now, as all of this is coming together, just to throw the Pope back in, we have my whole prediction of July 4th, that the Vatican will make moves on the Temple Mount on the 4th of July, and that this is going to spark this final holy war. So it's going to be all of this at once. We're going to have strange incoming bolides. We're going to have giant V-shaped craft flying over. We're going to have a holy war sparking out of the Temple Mount. And let's not forget that in Mecca, the Kaaba stone is also extraterrestrial. We're talking about this, rock from God. Yep. And when you start to watch some of the old cartoons, such as Conan and some of these, there's this video series on YouTube called Tell Evil Zion, which is basically television broken up into 3 words. And you'll see some of these old cartoons, and they talk about the space metal needed to defeat this incoming reptilian threat.
Yeah.
And so I see all of this coming to a head right this summer.
Okay, Freeman, I got to just throw this into the mix here, and then I want to take a short break and continue talking more with you because there's so much. But how about this one then? Because I recently here put up on our website information regarding the iridium, among other things. We're talking oil and gold and so forth, but the resources in Haiti. One of the reasons for the occupation/invasion, if you will, of U.S. and UN forces in Haiti after the earthquake, we don't need to take into the picture that this was manufactured or not. I mean, that's still a big possibility, obviously. But again, what is interesting is the reaction, what happened afterwards, the way that certain rescue planes was denied to land. We have this French organization, I think it's called Medical Staff Without Borders or something like that, and they were denied to bring in help, which is, of course, trying to create the chaos, if you will, to have people demanding the fact that a military can move in now because it's dangerous on the street, they've declared martial law there, blah, 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 all this stuff. But again, this goes back to the idea that there's apparently a lot of gold in Haiti, and there's also a lot of iridium there, which is used in space travel, and a lot of materials, this article said that we had up on the site, these are a lot of materials that are used and are key in terms of space travel and the space satellites, you know, things like this. So could it be that they're moving in on this region now because they need more resources, they need more minerals in order to actually build some of the things that they're planning? What do you think, Freeman?
No, they offended God with their pact with Satan.
Oh, that's right. Oh, God.
Yeah, okay, so we have reports showing, we're calling this the humanitarian invasion. And we have reports of, 2008, October of 2008, the geologists saying, look, Haiti, the Port-au-Prince, is going to be hit by a 7.2 earthquake. This was 2008. You can find that in my Space War news, and now they're reporting that report in other news. Mm-hmm. So we have the idea that Haiti was due. You know, there was no escaping a 7.0, 7.2 earthquake because the plates hadn't moved in something like 800 years. Maybe it wasn't that long, but something like, you know, anyway, geologists had predicted it. But when we start to look at the anomalous, then we realize that, okay, for the first time in 300 years, the UK, the British Navy fleet, leaves the area. Now, this was just weeks before the earthquake.
Yeah, I missed this totally. That's very interesting.
Yeah, first time in 300 years that they hadn't covered that area. And then, of course, then they had to spend all the time coming back. Yeah. So then we have Southcom in Florida setting up an internet online database system in case a tsunami hits Haiti. Now, this was the day before. So the day before the Haiti earthquake, Southcom setting up a massive computer network in order to facilitate communications in Haiti in case there was a tsunami at some point in the future. And then it happens, you know, the major earthquake happens tomorrow. Yeah. And they just happen to be ready for that. So Southcom just happened to be doing, you know, test runs right before. And then, of course, the humanitarian invasion, where the military comes in, takes over the two airports, takes over the presidential palace. Hillary saying, well, look, you know, we don't want to take over your nation. Just give it to us. You know, while George Bush is on the radio, on the airwaves saying, we know they all need blankets and stuff, but just send us your cash. Right?
Yep.
Okay, now here's the critical ingredient that we all need to take into effect, is that when we're looking at global structuring, when you realize that world wars are nothing more than social engineering, that there are leaders on all nations coupling together to say, okay, let's pretend this war, which of course is real to all of us because we live and die in it, and so we can cause more social change. The social change they need at this moment is to take down this concept of a free nation, the concept of a democracy in America, which has never existed. This concept is a fluke. It's a belief system that's been implanted into the moguls while the wizard elite live in an international world. So right now the whole engineering script is to bring down America, so all of the attacks are going to be going on us. They're going to be saying America's trying to take all the gold, iridium, and everything else out of these nations, just like the Iraqi war was all about America taking oil, when we know there are deeper pictures there because they're invading museums and taking these ancient artifacts, and that there's a deeper story that goes to our ancient past, goes to high civilizations in the ancient past. And if you don't believe that, it really doesn't matter because they do. When you start digging into Freemasonry, digging into the Thule Society, digging into Nazism, and every one of these type of situations, you come back to ancient civilizations and possible extraterrestrial involvement. Now, I'm not one to say that, you know, 10,000 years ago aliens came here and did this. I believe that civilization of humanity did exist for millennia. Some are even showing, like Michael Cremo, with 200,000 years of humans as we are, as Homo sapiens as we are now.
Yes.
So the whole point is that we got to be careful because they are engineering a social structure to change to a global system. They need to point the finger at America to say, look what happens when you give people liberty. You need this UN. You need us to be your council. You know, maybe they'll even come up with a new council beyond the UN because everybody hates them. And we'll start seeing more councils gathering in the Pyramid of Peace in Kazakhstan, you know.
Yep.
this will be, but the whole thing is to point the finger at America so that they can then engineer and say that. But yes, I totally agree that Haiti is a perfect spot for all of these type of metals, and I have been saying this all along. Why are we collecting gold? You know, people like to say, oh, it's this rare metal that we all just agree upon as our monetary structure. BS, I'm sorry. We have been collecting gold since Yahweh told us to, and probably beyond. And it is for a purpose, and it's not to store inside a mountain vault so that we can have some form of currency. Yeah. That's a lie, and we've all been misled.
So I guess what we can say in closing for the first segment of Freeman is the show, if you will, is about to begin. Freeman, stay with us. We'll take a short break and continue talking more about this in our member section if you